At 8:30 a.m. on the 1st of April 1945, the water off the Hagushi beaches of Okinawa is churning with the wake of 1,000 engines. It is Easter Sunday, and it is also April Fool's Day. The United States Navy has brought the apocalypse to the doorstep of the Japanese home islands. This is Operation Iceberg. The invasion fleet stretches from horizon to horizon, 1,500 ships, surpassing even the armada of D-Day in Normandy. 180,000 American troops, a mix of army soldiers and Marines, are barreling toward the seawall, their hearts hammering against their ribs. They have been briefed to expect a slaughter. Intelligence reports predict 60,000 to 100,000 Japanese defenders waiting to turn the white sand red. The ramps drop. The men scream and charge, rifles raised, expecting the chatter of machine guns and the roar of mortars. But there is only silence. The beaches are empty. The airfields nearby are deserted. The birds are singing. By nightfall, 50,000 American troops are ashore, standing around, looking at each other in confusion. They have captured their D-Day objectives without firing a shot. A sergeant jokes, "I've already lived longer than I thought I would." They believe the Japanese command has collapsed. They believe the war is practically over. They are walking into the greatest trap in military history. 32 miles south, deep beneath the ancient Shuri Castle, Lieutenant General Mitsuru Ushijima is looking at a map in a tunnel carved 100 feet into the coral rock. He knows he cannot win this battle. The American firepower is infinite. His is finite. He has no intention of fighting them on the beaches where their naval guns can pulverize his men. His strategy is fukaku endurance. He has turned the southern half of the island into a honeycomb of death. 60 miles of tunnels connecting natural caves, pillboxes, and artillery positions on the reverse slopes of hills. He doesn't want to stop the landing. He wants to lure the Americans into the meat grinder. His order to his 100,000 troops is chillingly simple. You are not allowed to die until you have killed 10 Americans. The lull lasts for 5 days. Then, the typhoon of steel begins. On April 6th, the Americans reach Kakuzu Ridge. Suddenly, the foliage erupts. The Japanese don't fire indiscriminately. They use interlocking fields of fire that cover every inch of the valley floor. But the most terrifying weapon isn't a machine gun. It is the 320mm Type 98 mortar, nicknamed the Screaming Jesus by the Marines because of the terrifying noise it makes in flight. These aren't normal shells. They are massive, rocket-assisted projectiles weighing 600 pounds. When one hits, it doesn't just dig a crater, it erases a platoon. The American advance stops dead. The easy walk is over. The grind has begun. But while the ground war turns into a stalemate, the sea war turns into a horror movie. At 15 on April 6th, the radar screens on the US fleet light up. Hundreds of bogies are inbound. This is the Kikusui floating chrysanthemums attack. The Japanese have abandoned the concept of aerial combat. They have turned their planes into guided missiles. These are the kamikaze, and among them is a new nightmare, the Oka cherry blossom. The Oka is a small, rocket-powered glider dropped from the belly of a bomber. It is piloted by a human being, but it is essentially a 2,600-pound warhead with wings. Once ignited, it screams toward a ship at 600 miles per hour. It is too fast for the anti-aircraft gunners to track. The physics of intercepting it are nearly impossible. Out on the picket line, the destroyer USS Lafay is about to become a legend. The radar pickets are the lonely sentries stationed miles away from the main fleet to give early warning. They are the first targets. At 8:30 a.m., the Lafay is swarmed by 50 Japanese planes. For 80 minutes, the ship is subjected to a relentless, coordinated suicide assault. 6 kamikazes slam into the ship. 4 bombs hit her deck. The ship is a floating wreck, her rudder jammed, her guns firing manually because the electrical systems are fried. The water around her is burning, but she doesn't sink. Her captain refuses to abandon ship. The gunners, slipping in the blood of their shipmates, keep loading. They shoot down 9 planes. It is a testament to American damage control and sheer stubbornness. But the cost is horrific. The picket lines at Okinawa will become the deadliest naval duty of the war. 36 American ships will be sunk and 368 damaged. The Navy is losing men faster than the Army on shore. Meanwhile, the Japanese Navy plays its final, tragic card. The battleship Yamato. This is the largest battleship ever built. A 72,000-ton monster with 18.1-inch guns that can hurl a shell the size of a Volkswagen over 26 miles. On April 6th, she sets sail for Okinawa on a one-way mission, Operation Tengo. She carries only enough fuel to get there. Her orders are to beach herself on the coast of Okinawa, turn her massive turrets into coastal artillery, and fight until she is destroyed. But the age of the battleship is dead, and the Americans are about to bury it. At 12:37 p.m. on April 7th, the Yamato is spotted not by another ship, but by aircraft. The US Navy doesn't send battleships to duel her. They send 386 aircraft. It is a swarm of hornets attacking a dinosaur. The Japanese giant puts up a wall of flak, firing her Sanshiki shells, anti-aircraft beehive rounds that act like giant shotguns. But they are useless against the agility of the American Avengers and Helldivers. The American pilots execute a textbook anvil attack. They concentrate their torpedoes on the Yamato's port side. One torpedo hits, then 3 more, then 2 more. The massive ship begins to list. Her counter-flooding systems fail. Inside the steel belly, thousands of sailors are clinging to bulkheads as the world tilts. At 14:23 p.m., the Yamato rolls over. As she capsizes, her magazines detonate. The explosion is a tactical nuclear event. A mushroom cloud rises 20,000 feet into the air, visible from the Japanese mainland. The pride of the empire takes 3,000 men to the bottom. The Japanese Navy ceases to exist as a fighting force. Back on Okinawa, the rains begin in May. This is the plum rain. It doesn't stop. The battlefield turns into a soup of grey mud, excrement, and rotting flesh. Tanks slide off roads, foxholes fill with water. The Marines call it the toilet of the Pacific. The battle focuses on a small, unassuming mound of earth called Sugarloaf Hill. It is barely 50 feet high and 300 yards long. It looks insignificant, but for 7 days, it becomes the center of the universe for the 6th Marine Division. Sugarloaf is a masterpiece of reverse slope defense. The Japanese are not on top of the hill, they are inside it and behind it. When Marines charge the summit, they are silhouetted against the sky, and Japanese machine guns on the neighboring Half Moon and Horseshoe Hills cut them to pieces. It is a kill box. A Marine platoon reaches the top, only to find mortar chutes opening at their feet. The Japanese are firing mortars from inside the hill, vertically. The Marines are fighting an enemy they cannot see. They are thrown back. They charge again. They are thrown back again. 11 times the hill changes hands. The solution is brutal and industrial. The Sherman Zippo tanks. These tanks replace their main gun with a massive flamethrower. They carry 300 gallons of napalm. They roll up to the cave openings. The physics of a flamethrower in a confined space are horrific. The burning napalm sucks all the oxygen out of the cave system in seconds. The heat is so intense it melts the skin off bone. The Americans stop trying to clear the caves with rifles. They simply pour liquid fire into the holes or seal them with bulldozers, burying the defenders alive. It is blowtorch and corkscrew warfare. By late May, the Shuri line finally cracks. The Japanese retreat to the south, but they drag the civilian population with them. This is the darkest chapter of the battle. The Okinawan civilians have been told by Japanese propaganda that the Americans are demons who will rape and torture them. As the US troops advance, they witness scenes that will haunt them forever. Entire families standing on the cliffs at Marpi Point, mothers clutching their babies. They look at the Americans, then jump. Hundreds of bodies smash onto the rocks below. American interpreters with loudspeakers scream, "Don't jump, we have food, we have water." But the fear is too deep. In the caves, Japanese soldiers are using civilians as human shields, or worse, forcing them to commit suicide with hand grenades. A US soldier enters a cave and sees a huddle of terrified women. He lowers his rifle. A Japanese soldier disguised in civilian clothes pulls a pin. The explosion kills them all. The distinction between combatant and non-combatant evaporates. The psychological toll on the American soldiers is devastating. This is where the 1,000-yard stare becomes the defining look of the Pacific veteran. They are fighting an enemy who welcomes death. At 3 a.m. on the 22nd of June 1945, deep in his final command cave at Mabuni, General Ushijima kneels on a white sheet. He has lost the battle. His army is annihilated. He unbuttons his tunic. Beside him, his chief of staff, General Cho, does the same. In a ritual that dates back to the samurai, Ushijima plunges a knife into his abdomen, while his adjutant beheads him with a sword. The resistance ends not with a surrender, but with silence. The cost of these 82 days is staggering. 12,520 Americans are dead. 36,000 are wounded. The psychological casualties are unprecedented. 26,000 cases of combat fatigue. The Navy has lost more ships than in any other battle in its history. But on the Japanese side, the numbers are apocalyptic. 110,000 soldiers are dead. Only 7,000 surrendered, mostly because they were too wounded to commit suicide. And the civilians, nearly 150,000 Okinawans, a third of the island's population, have perished in the crossfire. On the morning of June 23rd, Admiral Nimitz and General Buckner, who was killed by Japanese artillery just days before the end, stand on the cliffs looking north toward Japan. They are only 350 miles away. They have secured the air bases. They have the staging ground. But the victory tastes like ash. The planners in Washington, D.C. look at the data from Okinawa and their blood runs cold. They do the math. If taking a small island like Okinawa cost 12,000 American lives and resulted in 110,000 fierce Japanese deaths, what will the invasion of the main islands cost? The Japanese have formed the Volunteer Fighting Corps, 28 million civilians armed with bamboo spears and instructed to die for the emperor. Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of Japan, is estimated to cost 1 million American casualties and potentially 10 million Japanese lives. The resistance on Okinawa proved that the Japanese military would mobilize the entire population into a national suicide pact rather than surrender. In a desert in New Mexico, a scientist named J. Robert Oppenheimer is watching a gadget called Trinity explode. The weapon is ready. President Harry Truman is presented with the choice. On one hand, the meat grinder of an invasion, 100 Okinawas played out across the plains of Tokyo. On the other hand, a new, terrible weapon that could end the war in a flash. The horror of Okinawa makes the decision for him. The ferocity of the defense at Sugarloaf Hill and the suicide cliffs of Marpy Point convinces the American command that Japan will never surrender to conventional force. The road to Hiroshima is paved with the bones of Okinawa. The battle ends, but the silence that follows is heavy with the promise of a new, atomic age. The Typhoon of Steel was the last battle of the old world, a world of artillery and bayonets, pushed to its absolute, horrific limit. So, here is the question that historians still argue about. Was the fanatical resistance on Okinawa the direct cause of the atomic bomb, or was Japan already looking for a way out? If the US had invaded the main islands, would the Volunteer Fighting Corps have fought as hard as the soldiers on Okinawa, or would the regime have collapsed from within? Let me know your analysis in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the brutal reality of the Pacific War compelling, smash that like button. We are telling the stories of the conflicts that defined who we are today. Subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter.